Здравствуйте.
Здравствуйте. Okay, I'm going to show my screen. I don't know why I do not. The Windows option in MS Teams, I don't know why, but it does not work. Okay, I need to show my screen then. Okay, it's not that one. Here. We are going to, come on, now the presentation doesn't. Today we are going to continue our empirical. Today we're going to continue our empirical method seminar. Okay, as I see, okay, is it okay we stay it in English or do you prefer Russian? Because as I understood, everybody in the group should speak Russian.
Yes, we could continue in Russian, I think.
Or in English.
English.
So,
yeah,
it's okay both ways for me
No.
personally.
I mean, look, we have seminars in English by default. As your academic supervisor basically said, only if all people in the group strictly prefer Russian. Only in this case we can basically shift to Russian, switch to Russian. But as I understood, it's like half situation. So let's basically then, for instance, Nikolai says that he prefers.
I can listen either in English or in Russian, so I'm indifferent between them. So it doesn't matter for me.
Indifference is not an option. You should strictly prefer Russian or we stay in English. Okay. So, as I understood, other people do not. Okay, let's do it in this way. If you like decide that you strictly prefer Russian in some points, please write. Okay, English is okay. Then switch into English. Okay, empirical methods. As you remember, we discussed basically probit and logit regression, so-called logistic regression during our previous seminar. Do you remember in what basically situation we need to estimate probit regression? Okay, for what reason we use probit regression? Do it like that?
In case our dependent variable is dummy variable, if I'm right.
Yeah, you're right. And why I ask you, because probit regression is basically part of other kind of useful procedure. It's called Heckman correction. Why do you need Heckman correction? Because sometimes it's not only about labor economics, yeah? Because sometimes you may have the problem of self-selection in the sample. Okay, are some of you going to do empirical, basically, paper as your term paper in the end of the year?
Yes, of course.
Okay, what topic do you have?
Smart specialization and economic growth.
For instance, yeah. What data are you going to use?
Nah, I wish I could say that I will use some cool data, but in fact, I'm going to use data for Russian regions. So
From Prostat, you mean?
yes.
Okay.
For some recent years.
Yeah, it's yeah, okay, so for you it's not a reason. Okay. Except Nikolai, others, do you know what you're going to do in your basically 30-year paper, like a diploma? Okay, on your thesis, what are you going to study in your thesis, except in Nikolai? Are some of you going to, for instance, do some I don't know, regression based on individuals. Maybe it's but at this point you need to know what basically topic are you going to study and present in the end of the year. Okay, except like, do you know at least your supervisor? Daddy, I can start the record. Okay, maybe it's like, maybe you're sleepy. That's all.
Well,
Yeah.
for example, for our program, we have an interesting situation. So, as I know, the deadline for choosing a supervisor uh, was the 20th of November, but
Yeah.
we still did not study any NIS. In Russian, NIS.
Yeah. Research, like research seminar or something like that.
Yes. So any research seminars. So we are. So some of us are a little bit confused with all the procedure, but we are going to study it that week. But
Do you know the topic of your paper at least?
we should.
I understand that you know,
We
but
should. We definitely should.
I mean, for others, okay, as I understand, Nikolai are going to use like econometrics. Any other people are going to use theoretical economics or what? Do you discuss it a bit with your supervisor? Why I ask you? Because maybe Heckman correction can be solution for you. Okay. Why you need it? Think about that situation. You may need this correction if you, for instance, use some sample and you have missing data in your sample. For a stat, it's not the case. Okay, I think for a stat, you should have data for all regions, but it depends on what. Okay, Nikolai, are you going to use only Rostat or any other source of the data?
At some point, I believe that only Rostad, but it's not as ideal. I know a source of information as we can think. So sometimes it has its own problems and its own um, missing values. So I believe that topic can be applicable to my point too.
I'm not sure that, but Rostat usually do not have any missing. Well,
for some years. So
no, not it's not for years. Look, what you talk not. I mean, missing values for some variables for 1 year, for instance. Think about that situation. The classical example, basically, why we need to use it when we estimate, for instance, wage gap between men and women, or we estimate the return on different characteristics and this influence on this return. Basically, okay, when we wage return on different characteristics for women, for instance, yeah. If we speak about people with wages, who are they? Okay, who can get wages in the labor market? Only people with what? It's kind of maybe stupid questions.
with the available, I don't know, labor source or something like that.
Yeah, basically with a job. Yeah, you're right. Basically with a job, it's simple. And okay, if we think about women, for instance, yeah, what is the problem? That it can be that only individuals with specific characteristic can get a job. Yeah, it's obvious, maybe. And in this case, if you estimate the wages, yes, basically you can estimate only people who have information on these wages. But it can be that only like not really, but sorry for that. But that people not randomly get a job. Yeah, these people may sometimes happen. These people may have specific characteristics. They differ them from the people who do not get a job. You understand the idea? And for this, yeah.
Are we talking about some missing variables like abilities or something like that?
Yeah, it can not really. Look, we're talking about think about the sample of people, yes? And you say that your research question that like how, I don't know, different factors influence on your wages. Yeah, there can be different problems with abilities too. But the problem is what? Okay, if you estimate the sample, what is the main reason to estimate the sample? Basically, based on the sample, you want to get what?
Some estimations.
So, about what? About the sample or about what?
About the general set.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. About the general population. If we want to say something about general population, we should be sure that our sample is correctly, yeah, basically collected, or it's really random sample, yeah? Because if your sample is non-random, then you have biased estimates. Yeah, so it means that based on these results on the sample, you cannot say anything, or you cannot say correctly, yeah, about basically trends in the whole population. And if we speak about wages, the logic is simple. That the logic is what? We can estimate women who decided to go to job. And we can suppose that these women can be with really specific characteristics. It means that estimation of wages of these women with specific characteristics cannot give us the idea about like whole population, because we have what? We have the problem of self-selection. It means that only people with specific characteristic self-selected somehow, for instance, into our sample.
So it's just another way to deal with the specific type of endogeneity.
It's not really indigeneity problem. Yeah, it's like the problem I say mostly about validity of your results or biased results.
Okay.
It's dealing with the biased results. Okay, maybe it's more understandable. Like we basically with Natalia Vladimirovna Volkova, we wrote the article. Now it's in published process. Basically about CV of people who try to find a job. It's based on the CV data set for people who apply for manager jobs based on headhunter data. It's like closed data. According to CV. So we have like information about CV, and we want to understand what factors influence on the expected wages that people state in the CV. Yeah, you understand the idea? Like basically how this expected wages is formed. Yeah, how this, okay, why we care, like if you state the expected wages CV, we discuss the concept in the labor market. Expected wage in CV, it's proxy for what? For what concepts that we discuss? Expected wages is what? We discuss, okay, expected wages is CV. What does it mean? Basically, what it shows us. You understand the idea? You have your CV, yeah? And you can indicate wages that you want to get for job.
Okay, so I can calculate present value or what?
I mean, yeah, you can calculate, but I mean, it's like concepts that we discussed, and not in that lecture, but in the previous ones about decision of people to work or not to work. It's about reservation wage.
Mm-hmm.
What reservation wage, basically?
So that's the minimum wage for what an individual is ready to work.
Yeah.
Okay.
So wage in CV, it can be kind of proxy for this, because what is wage in CV? It's basically the minimum wage that I agree to go to job.
Okay.
I mean, no, but you may think about you, like it's wage what I want to get in order to basically accept, yeah, the job. But what is the problem? Look, not every people, according to our estimation, it's like a data set for St. Petersburg, only half of people indicate their expected wages in CV. And this we have a questions. Are people randomly decided to include wage in CV or not? If it's random decision, that it's okay, no problem. If it's non-random decision, it means that we estimated the effect of different characteristics on the expected wage only for those people with specific characteristic who decided to include wage in CV. For instance, for you, if you are going to find a job, are you decided to indicate your wage in CV or not?
Usually not.
Why?
Because usually we have some vacancies and their managers have their random salary in. В общем, они имеют зарплату уже ставят в предложении, то есть когда какая-то вакансия озвучивается, идет уже зарплата, на которую примерно может рассчитывать работник там, от, допустим, 50 тысяч и так далее. То есть мы, получается, уже, когда подаем свои CV на вот эту вакансию, примерно подразумеваем, какую зарплату мы будем получать, поэтому не указываем ее в CV.
Okay, but probably you saw that big companies do not basically indicate the salary in the vacancies.
Maybe yes.
Yeah, like in this case, are you going to indicate your salary or not in CV?
Maybe yes, because they should or not. When we have our meeting with our job offers, like yes, на собеседовании we can discuss the topic about salary.
Yeah. For okay. Considering this discussion, what do you think, whether people with better human capital, with higher level of human capital, or with lower level of human capital are going to indicate salary in the CV? Expected
higher.
With the lower.
Or okay, we have our why with the lower. Why do you think so?
For high level of human capital, the candidate doesn't need any numbers. I mean, any demands for the salary, because the HR will see from his CV that there is a lot of human capital in that candidate, and he will approximately understand the expected value, and so the expected salary of the candidate. But in the case of lower capital individual, so HR want to understand. So, is it just a bad CV, or is there not so much human capital? So maybe.
Yeah. Why we have other opinion? Why do you think it's people with higher level of human capital indicated their wages in CV?
I think other way, because usually people with a higher level of human capital know their ability and know what they want, so they directly say to the HR that their time will cost this money, and no, they don't want to waste their time because of low salary.
Yeah, thank you. So, like, we have two hypotheses. Basically, we found, for St. Petersburg is the first way that people with lower abilities basically state the expected wage in the CV. And the logic is basically Nikolai say, that people it's kind of signal for employers, that this is my level of reservation wage, and this is my basically wage that I do need, in order to accept your offer. But for people with high level of human capital, as said, they usually do not state any expected wages, because basically we suppose that wage in this case is the results of the bargaining process, like trade-off with your employer. But what interesting fact, okay, but we found that in CV, people with, who do you think indicate higher number of soft skilled in their CV? Okay, you know that in Headhunter CV you can write like other skills. Who indicated higher number for soft skills in CV? Like communicability, stress, and something like that.
A low human capital.
Why do you think so?
Because instead of hard skills, they indicate some soft skills, and switch their attention to something that is not so important in your job. But anyway, HRs look at these soft skills, and maybe sometimes some specialists are hired because of these soft skills that are not so smart or even professional.
So it's just to compensate the lack of hard skills. Let's say so.
Yeah, basically, you're right. We found that people with lower level of human capitals, like formal education, for instance, without like master degree, without PhD degree, they tend first indicate their wage, and then they tend to indicate higher number of cognitive and non-cognitive skills. And the last one, we will discuss it in the further lectures, but you know that people who okay, you know, in Headhunter, you may state in your CV that you want to relocate to other regions. Okay, for these people, do you think they indicate their wage in CV for people who willing to relocate to St. Petersburg?
I think they do, because they are probably from the group of low human capital ones. So because they can't relocate to St. Petersburg on their own, something like that.
Yeah, for instance, any other opinion? Okay, basically, you're right, but it's not really deal with the level of human capital. Yeah, and basically deal with the cost of migration. Yeah, people need to know what salary they can get when they posted CV, because they usually indicated the salary that can cover, the cost of moving. So they calculated, it's like kind of present value, that the cost of moving is something like that. And in order to move and in order to cover the cost, I need to get this salary no lower than that. Of course, we speak about every situation, I mean, it can be exceptions. Okay, why we discuss this? Look, in this situation, for real life, when we want to estimate the effect of different characteristics on our wage, for instance, for wages in CV, we found that there can be self-selection. And if we just lie on the simple OLS regression, our results will be biased. And for this, we basically do this Heckman correction. It's kind of not really complicated procedure in order to understand whether do we have self-selection of people who decided indicate or not to indicate wages in their CV. And for this, we may make a conclusion about what kind of people decided to include the wages. And for these practical reasons, it can be kind of practical for HR, for instance, because it's kind of screening of resume. Yeah, but it depends, of course. Okay, so what is the solution? Basically, to run this correction, there are several steps. First, basically, okay, nevertheless, when I'm going to use stata or R, it's like one command, but you need to understand what happened when we did this. The first step, if you do it by your hand, the first step is just you evaluate the probability of being in the group. In our case, for instance, we evaluate the probability to indicate the wages in CV. Yeah, so we just say like this characteristic or that characteristic influence that on that, influence in that direction, on the probability to indicate the expected wage in the CV. Then, based on this, we calculate so-called Heckman lambdas, or it's called sometimes inverse Mills ratio. Basically, just basically just not variable, how to say. Okay, it's just estimations that based on the coefficients on your selection equation, on your probability equation. And then this Heckman lambda is basically included in the main regressions. And because of that, first, you may see the sign and the significance of this Heckman's lambda. It's one lambda usually. It's if And addition, you of course get less biased estimates in the main equation. So the logic is simple. We'll discuss it again. First, you have your model. Suppose that you want to run simple or less regression. And you suppose that you may have suffer from selectivity bias, so-called. For that, like Heckman basically is the name of people who propose these methods. You can see this is a basic article about these methods. And it's kind of classical, I'll show you. It's like from 80s, basically 70s, So Heckman, he suggested we may estimate a model that based on the sample of data that is generated from wider population. It means that we estimate the probability to be in sample for people who cannot be in our sample because of some missing values. For instance, for people without wages, or for people without expected wages in the CV. But okay, we have still different characteristics for these people. In a case of CV, we have like education for these people, like willingness to relocate, number of cognitive and non-cognitive skills, then like do they have MBA or not? Do they have master's degree or not? What is their labor market experience and etc. Yeah, but we do not have like expected wages. And based on this, we can suppose what factors basically influence on the probability to indicate this expected wages or to be in employment for women. Yeah, in our case. So for the first step, it's just like simple probit regression. It's like selection equation. So in this equation, you need to include factors that you think may affect the decision of, for instance, women to be on the labor market or the decision of people to basically indicate their wages in CV. And how to, okay, this really maybe a simple conclusion, how to understand what factors may influence. For this, you need basically write the theoretical and literature review. Yeah, you have basic theories that can provide you with the intuition what happened. And you have other articles that, for instance, may say that, okay, think about indication wages CV. Who do you think with more probability would indicate it, men's or women? In case of gender, who have higher probability to indicate their salary in CV, males or females? What do you think?
Probably females.
Or why do you think so?
Because statistically, females get lower wages. So
yeah, and they get low wages. They think that okay. Yeah, you're right. The logic is following. Like we have so-called minorities group in the labor market. So those group who have lower probability to be in job. Yeah, because for instance, can be discrimination, it can be other practices and etc. Yeah, and for them, for instance, they need to indicate the salary that they agree to work in order do not spend time of the offers that definitely do not coincide with their expectations. Yeah, and for the I think so. For this minorities group, the probability to receive these offers is kind of higher than for those who are in more privileged positions, so-called. Let's call it that. Yeah, you understand the idea because, like, for instance, for not so high-paid administrative job, probably employers decided to invite, the women, compared to the males group. You understand the idea, yeah? For what, in terms of age, what do you think happened? Who is basically minority group in terms of age in our labor market?
elderly people.
Yeah, you're right, elderly people. And basically, and about human capital related to our basically lectures. Think about people who are 50 and older in the labor market. In what country they get education? In what time they get education?
USSR.
Yeah, you're right. It's in Soviet Union. Yeah, so like they get their human capital in Soviet Union. Think about what happened in 90s. Do capital in Soviet Union really applicable in the new labor market of Russia? Like think about 90s. Maybe your parents told you what happens in 90s.
Not really. Not really applicable.
Yeah, not really applicable. So like what is the problem? First, we have like, let's call it discrimination of elderly people. So elderly people have low chances to find a job because of their age, first. And second, if people do not have any additional education, their education that they received in Soviet Union, as a human capital is not really coincide with the needs of the new capitalistic labor market of Russia. So the people may have higher qualification, but in terms of new market, they may basically face the struggles with unemployment, the struggles to find a job. And okay, and in this case, for instance, for Russia, we suppose that, I mean, an empirical study shows us, that people who are older than 50 may have troubles. And basically our research shows the same, the people older than 50 have higher probabilities to indicate their wage in CV, according to this logic that we discussed already. Okay, so this is our selection equation. Then basically we so-called, based on this, we can estimate inverse Smith ratio. Do not worry, even if you do it by hand, there are basically formulas for this. You can go to these articles, or you can go to help of Heckman command. Like you just type Heckman. I show you, for instance, here. Just type help Heckman. And basically Stata shows you the shorter version, but if you type in Google help Heckman Stata, you get really nice help file with all theoretical background that lies behind this model, in case if you need to describe what happened. But for this, we just discuss the basic idea of these methods. Okay, so then we have this Heckman lambda, and basically we included in our initial equation. And in this case, we have so-called new estimated for wages. New estimated basically equation, and new coefficients on our independent variables.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Could you please repeat the idea of the method? So one more time, what we're doing? Are we trying to somehow take into account some self-selection, or what?
We're trying to take into account some self-selection.
Okay.
Look, what we want. We try to take into account that we have people only with specific characteristics in our sample. We try to take into account, do we have this problem of selectivity in our sample or not? Is it more clear now?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, good. So we have different assumptions, please. So I do not go into details. You have the slides in LMS, and you cannot. Okay, you cannot learn in more details for you, but just I want to explain as a main idea. So basically, again, what we want to do, we want to get less biased result. Okay, what is biased results? Do you understand? Okay, let's go. Do you understand what biased result means?
Those are results which are not correct. So they have some problems with estimators.
Yeah, basically. And so it means that we want to get more precise estimation, So what is critical note? That this selection equation should differ from the main equation by at least one variable, because we have this assumption. And if you, theoretically, you can use the same selection equation as your main equation, but only if you suppose that you have strict linear predictions. You know that linear predictions is not really real in the so-called real life, So again, we have strict assumptions. Your selection equation should differ from the main equation. Then the second one, basically this lambda sign and its significance, like separately, cannot tell you anything about direction of the bias. Why? Because you may have significant lambdas even if you do not have any bias in real, but you can interpret the sign and the sign and the significance of this lambda only in case if your probit model, if your selection equation not bad. For this, we have the previous basically seminars that we discuss how we check the goodness of fit for probit and logit. So it should basically you can run different tests, but the main criteria of this, whether your characteristics that you include in selection equation really significant. So the main idea is what? If you select significant characteristic that can explain the probability to be in sample, in this case, you can interpret the significance and sign of the lambda. So in case of meaningful selection equation, the sign of the lambda could give you the direction of bias. So positive side of course, it's first it's significant. Its lambda is significant, then we have bias.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
But how do we understand, is it meaningful or meaningless? So
I mean, as I said, the first sign, you just check whether your variables, independent variables in probit equation significant or not. If it's
okay.
significant, then you're okay. If it's like, I don't know, if only one or two variables is significant, you probably have a problem. It means that you cannot really predict the probability to be in sample. The idea is what? You need to predict the probability to be in sample. If you fail that, then you cannot rely on the lambda, okay, Heckman lambda, so-called. Because, I mean, your whole model is not so good because you cannot find characteristics that should influence, yeah, to probability to be in specific group.
Okay, I got it.
So, like, again, positive sign of significant lambda shows you that respondents, for instance, in our case, selected into employment, on average obtain higher wages than non-working respondents would if they were higher. So it's kind of simulation, yeah? We suppose what happened. Negative signs, it means what? Those who do not work would have higher wages than those who work. For instance, positive signs, this is usually the case when we speak about self-selection of females into employment. Negative size of lambda, for instance, is the case we discuss with the CV. So if people who do not indicate their salary in the CV would indicate it, then they should have higher wages, I mean expected wages, compared to those people who indicated their salary in the CV. Yes, it's just the direction of bias, negative or positive.
And in the case of a CV, is it negative or positive? One more time.
It's negative. Negative, look, again, negative means what? That the best one do not indicate their status. For instance, do not have a job, do not indicate expected wages, and etc. Positive means that the best one in our sample, in case of female employment. And more educated women, women who live in big cities, have higher probability to have a job compared to females with a lower level of human capital.
One more time, who is the best one in your description? I understand that it's a pretty simple logic, but I can't get how do you extract it from the
Okay,
assumptions.
Look, to understand what happened, we have wage equation. Yes, we have different return on different characteristics based on this equation. For instance, we say that people with higher education get higher wages. Yeah, people who live in big cities have higher wages. We can get it from our equations. Yeah, so we have different coefficients on our independent variables. We have the same characteristics, education, regions, for people who do not indicate their wages. In the case of female who do not have wages, because basically they not in the labor market. But if we extrapolate this return on different characteristic on them, we see, because of structure of the group, yeah, for instance, look, females who are not in the labor market have lower level of education compared for those who are in the labor market. For instance, yeah, females who are not in the labor market usually live in small towns. And we know that education in small towns have some influence on wages. So again, yeah, people with higher education get higher wages, people in small towns get lower wages. Yeah, compared to Moscow and St. Petersburg, for instance.
Okay, and
in this case, we think what happened if these people who are not in the labor market decided to go to the labor market, having their characteristics. And we can suppose what happens with their wages based on the returns of different characteristics that we can get from the wage equation. It's like simulation experiment. Do you have the ideas?
Yes, but in that example, people who are who has poor education, they live in village, and basically, and people with higher education, let's say so, simplify, live in towns. Okay, so and we know that in towns people usually get higher salaries. Okay, we take some village guy and put him into the town. Okay.
No.
No?
Into the town. Look, this is several situation. It's not based on the people. It's based on the structure of a sample. Think about that. Like we have two samples. Those who in the labor market, yes, and those who are not in the labor market, like Russian level of Russian labor market in average. And we see that the percentage of people who live in town is higher among those who have job compared to those who do not have job.
Okay.
So it shows the sample. And based on this, because like OLS based on average, yes?
Yes.
And think what we have. We have average for those who are not in the labor market, yes? We have average. Mean, yeah, mean of different variables. And we have coefficients of the regressions. Think about it. And you can basically, I mean, it's really theoretical, yeah, but what you can do, you can basically calculate the wage for those who are not in the labor market in case if they decided to go into the labor market, considering the mean of different variables for this group.
Isn't that just the interpretation of OLS coefficient with a dummy variable like employed or unemployed?
The problem is what? For unemployed people, you do not have wages.
Ah, Now I see. Okay. And in that case, our lambda is greater than 0 or not?
Yeah, it's positive. In this case, our lambda is greater than 0 because you say that if people who do not have job and wages, we do not have information about wages for them. That's the trick. Of course, you can run the regression, but if people are unemployed, no wages for them. You see, yeah? The same for CV book. If people do not indicate wage in CV, we do not know anything about their expected wages. But we can suppose what happened if, like, considering the structure of the sample for those people who do not indicate wage in CV. What happened if they indicate wage in CV? What happened with the, would it be higher or lower? Compare basically to the people who indicated wage in CV.
Okay. And in the case of cities and villages, with employed and unemployed, for example, we calculated that if we take our unemployed guys and put them into the employed sample, for example, their wages will be lower, because they are lazier or less educated and so on. And in that case, our bias is positive or negative?
Positive.
So how to interpret it? So
because we care about those who are in employment. The bias consider people who already employed. It means that people who employed have higher wages compare the people who are not employed if they were employed. So bias not about unemployed, but we think about bias employed, but because in our sample we have employed people. And so we care only about bias for people who are already in our sample. Why is positive? Because we say that only the best one, selected into employment. Only the best one selected into our sample.
Okay.
Understand the logic. With a CV, what is assigned for lambda in case of CV will be?
It like the reverse case. So only the the worst I don't know, okay, the worst stated their reservation wage. So our okay, and so our sample is guys who stated the wage, right?
Yeah.
So if we put some guys without that statement, so if so we assume this situation in which they have stated their wage, but in fact they didn't, and in that case they will have a higher wage, right?
Yeah, right.
So our lambda is negative because our original sample is biased like below 0, so it's biased away from the new one. I know how to
Yeah, you're right. So it just like, you're right. Not, you're not the worst, like comparably. I mean, they have like comparably low level of human capital, compared to other people. Yeah, you're right. Basically, this is the idea of this method. So you see on the lambda sign, and in case of good selection equation, you may suppose what type of bias do you have. Of course, you need to understand, like in econometrics, of course, the results can be different if you, for instance, include other characteristics, yeah, in our sample. Of course, including different characteristics can get you different results, because this whole idea lies on the how you decided to specify your selection equation. Yeah, I hope you understand. Yeah. So like basically this calculation based on your selection equation.
Yes, so we can take for the role of the original sample, the sample of those who hasn't stated their wage. In that case,
Yeah.
it will be reverse.
Yeah,
Case.
I mean, it can be different. Yeah, and also look, and also your lambda again depends on what factors you decided to include in selection equation. It means, for instance, first we decide age, education, but if we include, for instance, I don't know, sector, knowing of foreign languages, we can have different situation, because we do not, again, yeah, new factors for selecting can change your results. I hope it's understandable, yeah, because again, these lambdas based on the selection equations and based on basically factors that you decided to include in this equation.
Okay, so we can put more than one factors, and there will be more than one lambdas. And
no. You have only one lambda for. Okay, let us show you. It's like for you, just we like summary statistics. It's like artificial sample. It's like we created the unemployment. This is how you can test the difference between groups. This is just some ideas. Look here, you have only one lambda. It means that this lambda will change depends on what factors you decided to include here in selection equation.
so like the aggregative direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like direction for whole sample, but not for each factors.
Okay.
This is example of women. It's like not real data set, just study data sets from Stata that Stata provides. Okay. Here's a lambda. Here's a, I forgot how to, доверительный интервал.
Confidence interval?
Yeah, confidence interval, thank you. Sometimes it slips, sorry. Okay, confidence interval. You see that you do not have any t-statistics or p-value, but you have confidence interval. Is our lambda significant in this case, considering it's confidence interval for 95%? Is our lambda significant in 5% according to this estimation?
I don't understand. Where are the?
This is a coefficient here.
So the first one.
The first one, yeah. This is a standard error. It just says the error.
Okay.
This is the coefficient. This is a confidence interval. Does it significant or not? What confidence interval shows us?
It shows us the area in which we cannot reject the zero hypothesis. So in that case, if we are assuming the standard table, so 4.2 is greater than 1.96. So our zero hypothesis is rejected or not?
Again, look, this is a coefficient. This is confidence interval. If coefficient lies in the confidence interval. So what we talk about significance? Do we have significance or not? If it's lie in this confidence interval.
We do not have significance. No?
No, otherwise. It should like, okay, the simple stuff. Okay, think about this one with the p-value. It's like
Okay.
179, yes? This is p-value. Based on p-value, we said what? The sigma is significant or not?
That H0 is rejected, and it depends on the H0. So basically, H0 is that the coefficient is insignificant, right?
Yeah, but I mean, small p-value means that you can reject zero hypothesis, and then it means the coefficient is significant. Look now.
Yes. So we we reject the hypothesis that coefficient is insignificant. So
yeah, you are
coefficient
right.
is significant.
Yeah, you are right. Maybe I messed it. Yeah, you are right. So like, if this one lies between these two numbers, it means that we have significance. That's all. Okay. Do we have self-selection of women in our sample? Suppose that we have normal, I do not show it, but believe me, we have significant variables in selection equation. I told you we have significant variables in selection equation. Based on this, can you say that we have a selection problem for females? Okay,
have to.
Yeah, it's significance. Yes. Is it positive or negative? Look on this number.
It is positive.
Yeah, it's positive. That's all. Yeah, you see this. It's a small, basically it's a part of the table that you get. Please write about this rho and sigma. It's here, yeah. Okay, this is basically, you can use it with the robust standard. Yeah.
So, and the result is that for females, we have lower wages, right?
It means that those who are not in the labor market would have lower wages compared to the females who are already in the labor market.
Okay, but those who are not on the labor market, we assume males and females. So
no, it's only for females. It's like equation only for females.
Okay. So
yeah,
those who are not on the labor market will have lower, right?
Yeah.
Wages.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Right. So I just show you that you may use robust standard clusters. Okay, when we need to use robust standard error?
According to Vladimir Pyrlik, every day and every second.
Right, but why?
Because we don't have the assumption of homoscedasticity ever.
Yeah.
So
basically, it's because your real data, if you are going to use real data with high probability would have the problem of heteroscedasticity, because real data have never have homoscedasticity. And because of that, you work like with real data. Rostat, even Rostat do not have homoscedasticity too. Okay, have you heard about cluster standard error?
We've heard about clusters, but not about clusters errors.
Okay, these errors you need if you're going to use panel data. For instance, you say that you are going to, okay, do you have, It's going to be time series, or about for study, or it's going to be panel data for your thesis in the end of the year?
As I understand,
Временные ряды вы будете делать или панельные данные?
Panel data.
Okay, panel data. For this, you need to use clustered error. Cluster center. Why you need to? Okay, what's the problem with panel data? Maybe you may think it now. Okay, what is the panel data basically?
It is data for several variables, which is collected for several periods.
Yeah. So so you have repeated, observation basically in your data set. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you have repeated observations, do you think we have no problems with errors in this case because of repeated observations?
I think we have many errors, and the endogeneity is one of them, and it's not the only one.
Data can be autocorrelation because what? Because as you said, you have repeated observations in your data set and can have problem of autocorrelation. I think because like one region you look like twice or third or fourth.
Yes, of course, those numbers will be connected.
Yeah, so for this you need not use not just simple robust error but clustered standard error, so-called. So it can help solve this problem of correlation, and problem of heteroscedasticity too. So like if you just 1 year go with robust, if you panel data go with cluster standard error, that's all.
Okay.
So for Heckman, be quick, because like we have a huge Oaksaки-Blainder model. If we do not have time for Oaksaki-Blainder, you still have in slides. I do not have any test or any exams on this or any homework. It's just for you. If you're interested, please read slides at home, okay? Because basically we're out of time because we spent some time for Heckman. Maybe it's more useful for you. And Oaksaki-Blainder, I just say 2 words in the end what happened, and please read it. The slides, it's kind of detailed slides at home. Okay, for Heckman, look, you may have 2 possible form of the Heckman. One is called the classical Heckman model. We discuss it like now, and one is 2-step. Basically, it's the same. It's dealing with the same idea. It's the same idea. How to interpret the lambda, how to interpret the results. Nothing special. Just minor difference. It's like the technique that lies behind. Even if you do not understand techniques that lie behind, I do not want to overrate our slides with the technical details. For this, please go to the Heckman help in Stata. But what you need to understand, what type of Heckman model use depends on your ideas, depends on your main research goals. So okay, based on the ideas, on the slides, then choose your preferable, like classical Heckman model or 2-part Heckman model. The logic is the same. Just basically. Okay. How it looks like? Look. First, you
excuse me.
Yes.
For what to have 2-step Heckman model?
Sorry.
Why do we need 2-step Heckman model?
It's just because give you more so-called precise results if you want to predict an actual response. So two-step is good when you need also selection equation results. So if you want to explain not only the final wage or equation, for instance, yeah, and also if you want to discuss the size of or the sign of selection, yeah, and you want to discuss basically selection equation results or results of the probit, go with two-part model. If you do not care about selection, you just know that there is a selection and you won't get only results of your equations, like final equation, yeah, go with the Heckman model, that's all.
One more time. Two-step selections. If two-step Heckman model, if we want to have some precise results on selection, right?
Yeah, okay. Two-step model is a choice when you want to discuss not only final equation already corrected for this cell selection, but also want to discuss the selection equation results. So the results of the problem. Then go with two-step. If you need only final equation, do not care about this, just run simple Heckman model, that's all.
I get it. Thank you.
Here, look, just for you to show, yeah? Here, this is two-step, as you see. Here's the first step of our two-step model, just simple probit. Yeah, it's the same that you run probit by yourself. The same. Yeah, and just like just with different signs, because here one is for unemployed and here one is for employed, but you see it's the same, just signs is different. If we so-called recode our variable, yeah, you see that it's exactly the same results for probit. If your work with data is kind of can be useful instead of writing, for instance, some part of the comments each time, you can use status global macros, so-called, and it just allows you to create some groups. And instead of typing, I don't know, 10 variables, you just type the name of the group with the dollar signs, and stat would refer to the specific group of the variables. It can be not only be group of the variables, it can be part of your regressions. Basically, it's just part of code that you want, that you need to use more than one. Yeah, instead of typing by your hands, just you can refer to this global groups. It's just not for Heckman, it's just alternative way to do this. Okay. Basically, now we have like 4 minutes. This is Oaksaky-Blainder. It's specifically used when you want to study wage gap between people. Think about this. We say that there are probably wage gap. And according to simple equation, we can get only the size of wage gap. But sometimes you want to understand the reason for this. And for this, you can run different type of models, is different type of decomposition. What decomposition is? Just basically, it's just one equation for one group minus equation for another group. And if you really care about technical details, so you need to really understand what happened, please go to this articles, because it has a really nice and not really complicated technical way what happens when you do decomposition. Yeah, I just explained the sense of this. Look, and this basically difference of outcome, difference of different equation. Yeah, you can here, yeah, you can decompose to three-way. Basically, it's just step by step, yeah, you can calculate it that from this one, from that one here. You basically, where is this? You basically get this one. Okay, but how to get this? Please go to the article. But what is the main idea? That you basically divided your outcome, difference in your outcome, difference in your y, yeah, difference in your dependent variable, by different parts. And each part can explain some part of the difference in this dependent variable. So the first part basically explains the difference in wages because of difference in the structure of groups. Basically, it shows you what part of the wage gap can be explained by difference in characteristics that you included in your wage equation. And you understand that the wage equation for two groups is the same. If you include, for instance, age and education, this part shows you how many, what percentage of wage gap you can explain by difference in education and age for groups of males, for instance, and females. Yeah, the other part, this is usually uninterpretable. It's like the third part is basically interaction term. It's hard for interpretation in reality, and people usually do not interpret at all. People usually care about this second part. Basically, second part shows you what part of your wage gap cannot be explained by characteristics that you included in your equation. And usually people attribute it in discrimination, but it's not really right, because discrimination means that you include in your equation all possible variables that can influence on the wage gap. So this part really means what? It means that how much of wage gap can be explained by discrimination plus unobserved heterogeneity. It means that plus other factors that can influence a wage gap, but you do not include it in your equation. Okay, we are done basically, but do you understand the idea of Oaksaки-Blainder? And you have all the slides. If you're interested, please read at home by yourself.
Excuse me. Could you please repeat the main idea? So we are dividing what? Our sample into different pieces?
Sample.
Our equation?
You have two equations of wage for males and females, yes? For instance.
Okay.
You subtract one equation from other. Basically what you do, you subtract like one equation for one group minus equation for other group. Basically the idea is what? What is the wage gap? It's just difference, yeah, in wages.
Yes, okay.
So it can be, we know that wages can depend on different characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, we run equations for males and females. And of course you can say we can basically use dummy variables in order to get wage gap, but this cannot answer the questions, what is the main source of this wage gap?
Mm-hmm.
For this, we may run decomposition. What is decomposition? It's just difference between two equations that divided by difference part. Is it more understandable now?
Okay, and difference part is?
Difference part is first explain what part of wage gap can be explained by the difference in structure of the groups. Think about the same example with the town and education. If in our group men is more educated, it means that they will have higher wages just because yeah, they have higher level of education than women. So education can explain part of our wage gap.
And in that scheme, it will be the first part. So go.
Yeah, in this scheme, it will be the first part.
Okay, and the second part?
The second part is everything that we cannot explain, but by variables that we included in our equation. In our example is education.
So, and first part plus second part, it should be just our gap, right? Or not?
Also, we have this interaction term. So first part plus second part plus third part, yes, it's our wage gap.
Okay, and interaction term, it's something about constants.
Yeah, it's something technical, yeah.
Okay, I see. Now I get it. Now it it seems logical. Finally. Okay.
So here is our wage gap, yeah, and we divided it by 3 parts.
Okay. I see.
Okay, so like this is one method, and we have twofold decomposition with only 2 parts. Please read it at home, yeah? In this case, it's more easy. You have first part, like explain, yeah? And the second part, like can explain. And basically this unexplained part, yeah, theoretically, it's like this part plus this part, that's all. I mean, it's different techniques that lies behind this, but the logic is approximately the same. But if you have 3-part decomposition, you interpret only these two parts. This is just technical part, that's all.
Yes, okay. So we trust you on math here. So, but previous slide, please.
Yeah, previous. Sorry, here. Here.
And so on that slide, so in our example, for example, wage of male and female. So the real difference between wage of a male and a female, it will be E, right? The first part. And C, it will be just some other effects.
No. Look, R, it's a wage gap. For instance, I don't know, it's 20%. It's like 0.20. And this 0.20 divided by 3 parts. For instance, this part is like 0.10. This part is 0.9. I don't know. This part is 0.1.
Okay. I'm trying to compare it with my idea of interpreting the same situation via dummy. So
look, it's not okay. Dummy shows you only the size. Dummy shows you basically only the R.
Yes, and I'm trying to understand if E is the number we search for. So what is the C? Some kind of error in R?
No. E is the first part. It's like part that can explain the difference between of the structure. C is a part of the R that can be explained by what we do not include in our equation, basically. And I, this one, E, yeah,
it's basically
part. Sorry?
It's technical part.
Yeah, it's technical.
And
so it means that, for instance, you may say how many of the initial wage gap can be explained by difference, for instance, education in age in 2 groups of males and females.
Okay. So it I thought that it's like
Сейчас я вам быстренько покажу. Нет, это не уточнение гепа. Это я просто свою диссертацию открою. Блин, сейчас я ее не могу найти. Я просто хочу показать, как это выглядит. Сори. Блин, это отзывы. Я просто никакую статью сейчас не могу найти. Сейчас. Вот, сейчас я вам покажу. Сейчас я пролистаю быстренько, вам покажу, как это выглядит в реальности. Смотрите. Просто это быстрее, чем статью искать. Так, это не то. Вот, смотрите, это выглядит вот так. Например, если двухсоставно, видите, ну, это я просто своим неважно. Тут мигранты считаются. Смотрите, вот эта общая разница, например, видите? Ну, вот здесь. Вот она. То есть, грубо говоря, этнически нерусские мигранты, у них зарплата меньше на 13%, ну, там, примерно 13% по сравнению с местными. Смотрите, и вот я здесь сделала двухсоставную. Она делится на две части. То есть, вот эта часть минус 23% объясняется тем, что как бы мы ставили уравнение, 16% тем, что мы не ставили. Минус это означает, что если бы у нас не было, как бы, если бы зарплата зависела только от того, что мы вставили в уравнение, они бы сокращали разницу. То есть, грубо говоря, например, вот это здесь объясняется тем, что среди мигрантов больше мужчин, и они чаще живут в Москве. Мы знаем, что мужчины, они получают больше зарплату, чем женщины. И если бы как бы зарплата была мигрантов зависела только от их пола и того, что где они живут, то они бы как бы, ну, при прочих равных, да, получали бы зарплату выше, чем местные. Понятно, как это? Давайте я вам другое уравнение покажу, где по-другому. Сейчас я найду.
Там было логично. В смысле, что, ну, то есть просто мы показываем, что наш геп условно...
Вот смотрите, вот здесь очень просто понятно. Смотрите, вот наш геп 6%, да, вот он 100%. 33 из них объясняется тем, что я вставила уровень, там, образование, пол, возраст и так далее. 66% объясняется дискриминацией плюс то, что не вставлено в уравнение. Ну, то есть, например, всякие некогнитивные, когнитивные навыки, которые тоже влияют на зарплату. Вот как бы, ну вот, то есть...
А вот, чем вставлен сам геп? То есть, как мы геп определили?
Геп это просто разница, разница в средней зарплате мужчин, например, там, не знаю, мужчин и женщин. Ну, то есть геп это просто разница в игреках.
И мы эту разницу объясняем, ну, то есть, как бы условно...
Да, мы эту разницу объясняем как бы тем, что вставлено в уравнение, сколько как бы может объяснить, ну, как бы характеристики, которые мы учли, да, и тем, что мы не учли.
Ну, это своего рода как r квадрат, что ли?
Ну, не особо. Ну, как бы, сейчас я вам покажу, как это выглядит. Сейчас, где она там? Так, это условие. Я просто, смотрите, там просто вы можете, вот, смотрите, вы можете, вот здесь, да, смотрите, можно разбить объясненную часть на конкретно, сколько объясняет каждый фактор конкретно. Видите, у меня объясненная часть, это вот грубо говоря, 33% от гэпа, да? И смотрите, и мы можем посчитать вклад каждого фактора отдельно. Ну вот видите, у меня там возраст, этничность, там образование, тип населенного пункта и так далее.
То есть это условно, насколько разница в зарплате мигрантов и там коренных жителей объясняется вот этими факторами.
Да.
То есть мы не отвечаем на вопрос, как бы мы уже знаем ответ на вопрос, что зарплата между мигрантами и коренными отличается. И уже...
Нет, мы ее знаем вот здесь. Мы вот здесь, видите, если оно значимо отличается, вот видите, здесь оно не значимо. Значит, вот здесь не отличается. То есть и мы на декомпозиции говорим, что у нас нет разницы.
Да.
Ну, то есть как бы у нас может быть все равно какие-то факторы влиять, да, отличаться, но так как общей разницы нет, значит, вот у нас нет разницы в зарплатах. Вот если значимо, то у нас есть разница в зарплатах.
Да, разница в зарплатах есть, и также мы можем сказать, ну, почему она есть, ну, как бы не считая факта того, что они приезжие или коренные. То есть как бы мы раскладываем этот факт на еще одни, ну, там, на список из фактов. Там
Да, то есть,
образование, пол, еще
вопрос,
что-то.
почему мигранты меньше получают?
Вот, да.
Ну, как бы, вот вы отвечаете. Ну, то есть, почему женщины меньше получают? И
То
вы
есть,
говорите, что, ну, потому что вот, как бы, вот у нас есть факторы, на которые мы можем разложить эту разницу.
то есть мы не останавливаемся на моменте, как на первом семинаре по эконометрике, что вот мы показали, женщины меньше получают, точка. А потом,
Да,
типа, ну, как это, подумайте, почему это так. А вот здесь мы как бы подумали, почему это так, и расписали.
да, да. Ну, то есть
Все.
это следующий шаг в объяснении, почему у нас существует разрыв. Смотрите, это может быть разрыв зарплат, не знаю, разрыв в финансовых показателях в фирмах. То есть тут вопрос, как бы, что вы берете за Y, неважно. То есть если у вас есть разрыв какой-то в Y у нескольких групп, да, например, у вас может быть разрыв, не знаю, в ВРП регионов, и вы хотите понять, почему у вас существует разрыв ВРП регионов. Ну, тогда вам нужно как-то регионы на 2 группы делить. Ну, или, например, на 4 группы, ну, брать одну за базовую, с этой группой все сравнивать. Ну, я пыталась ближе к вашей теме как-то. Вот, но обычно это используется, да, для разрыва в зарплатах, если есть разрыв в зарплатах.
Да, окей, понял. То есть, но в теории это можно и на регионах. То есть мы условно скажем, что между Москвой и Владивостоком есть разница в доходах, но мы на этом не остановимся, а приведем список факторов, а почему. Ну, как бы
Да, но
условно.
смотрите, тут проблема, если у вас 2 наблюдения, вы не сможете эту разницу сделать. Ну, то есть
Не-не,
если
ну,
если у вас есть люди, репрезентативные Владивостока, и люди, репрезентативные Москвы, ну, понимаете, да, по регионам репрезентативность,
да-да-да.
вы можете это сказать.
Ну да, по двум наблюдениям строить регрессионный анализ, в принципе, страшно. Это правда.
Ну, да, и у вас, если регионы, то у вас как бы тоже может быть проблемы,
Ну, у нас
потому
их...
что у вас мало наблюдений. Но смотрите, смотря что вы хотите. Вы знаете же, что, например, у Росстата есть всякие наблюдения типа выборочные, которые они по людям делают, а потом они это экстраполируют как бы на общую совокупность. Но смотря что вы хотите смотреть, вы можете посмотреть. У них есть ОНЗП, где они зарплаты делают, у них есть ОРС, это обследование рабочей силы, и у них есть типа КОУШ, это комплексное наблюдение условий жизни населения, там всякие проценты, знаете, там на продукты, ну, короче, как люди живут. Посмотрите, может, вам... А какая у вас вообще гипотеза?
Ну, пока что я еще изучаю литературу, вот, но в теории была идея, что умная специализация положительно сказывается на экономический рост. Сейчас главная проблема в том, что никто эту умную специализацию нормально не может определить. Типа,
Понятно, да.
все путаются в понятиях, а что это такое, чем отличается от диверсификации и специализации. Вот. Но в целом, да. Вот.
Ну, вот как бы вы посмотрите, может быть, ну, то есть, если пойдете вот по этим выборочным наблюдениям, там будет больше наблюдений, будет
Мгм.
проще.
Да, окей.
Что там, 86 регионов у нас, да,
Но
у
это
вас
немного,
86
да.
наблюдений, но это как бы проблемно.
Да. Но в целом идея это классная.
Нет, конечно, имеется в виду, что как бы вы посмотрите, может, какие-то данные можно
Мгм.
тянуть, так сказать.
Окей, понял.
Все,
Спасибо.
тогда, да, вам спасибо. Мне кажется, все уже. Тогда до свидания.
До свидания.